social distancing. Yeah. Okay. We are still fixing it. So now when I don't know something, he does it for me. Testing it, I'll show you how. Okay. Okay. So now we are live. I think we should take this. Yeah. I'll have it now. Okay. Yes. Okay. So, hi, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have with us a lady who has got politics in Virasat, I would say, from her husband. Her husband was a very well-renowned politician and an environmentalist, and she's carrying forward the same path of being an environmentalist. She was the only woman minister during 2014 to 2019. From 2012 to 2015, and she held the positions of rural development, environment, education, science and technology. Science and technology, not education. Education always belongs to the prime minister. So I would like to welcome a very highly renowned and very concerned individual on environment with us today, Ms. Alina Saldana. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you. Ma'am, times are changing, and this is the first meeting that we are having in person with a political leader on digital parliament. We would love to know what has been your journey as a woman leader, and what were the trials and tribulations that you had to face while your journey? Let me start by saying that I am not a politician, and I never dreamt that I would be involved in politics. It was my husband, late Madani Saldana, who won the elections in 2012, and he was inducted into the cabinet of Goa. Unfortunately, fate had other plans for him, and he left us immediately, maybe 15
few days after he was inducted. And at that point of time, I was then requested by the then Chief Minister, Shri Parikashji, to step into his shoes. And that is how I am here today. And yes, I have been with Matani in many agitations for the protection of the environment. And therefore, I am very attached to the environment, and I understand, the role that the environment plays in our lives and how important it is for us to respect them.
Ma'am, we heard that because of your late husband, there has been some national level environment laws and regulations created. Would you please share your journey on those?
Yes. As far as I am aware, Matani, the first agitation Matani fought was against a company that was chemically polluting the waters in Hortani constituency, especially towards Belsaum and Pali. And as a result, there was fish mortality, and the children were getting sores on their bodies. And that is the factor that alerted Matani and others. And then they started to investigate, and they realized that this was due to chemical pollution. And they fought the struggle. They were very determined. They had different strategies during the struggle. And as a result, the company changed its mode of production. In fact, they had to stop production for a period of time, change the infrastructure that they used. And this was the first environmental struggle in the country, which gave the country the water pollution and control. Then, I think soon after that was the fishermen's struggle, the Rampongar movement as it was called. And this movement was taken throughout the coast of our country. And of course, again, there were different strategies, and the fishermen of the entire state and the country were involved. And eventually, this agitation led to the Marine Regulation Act and also the 5-kilometer ban for mechanized fishing. And then there were countless struggles, because Matani was one person who rightfully believed that we have to protect the environment, because human beings, the existence of human beings eventually depends upon the environment. I think this is a factor that most of us tend to forget. We take the environment for granted, and we even try to abuse the environment without giving a thought to the consequences that we will have to face. Maybe even not our generation, but the future generations may have to face the consequences of what we do today. And that's why it is always said that the environment is handed over to every generation for its use very conscientiously. And we are supposed to improve upon the environment and hand it over to the next generation. Unfortunately, this is not happening.
Ma'am, it is very pertinent that the environment is one of the closest cause to your heart. In the times that we are living, we've heard about the 3-linear project that the government of Goa is planning to roll out, because of which there are a lot of agitations going on in the government also, and in the people also. There's a lot of unrest. What are your thoughts, and had Mr. Matani been there, what would be different and how could it be?
I think that if Matani was there today, Matani would definitely be there with the people to save the environment. See, the country has definite laws, definite rules and regulations. And these are there precisely to protect the environment. And we have to abide by these laws. Now, when I was the Minister for Forest and Environment, I remember, there was an order from the Supreme Court to identify private forest, okay, not government forest, but private forest, okay, and the Supreme Court almost chastised the government for taking so long in doing that. Now, at the same time, of course, we formed committees. There were some committees previously formed, the Sabun committee, and many committees were formed to identify based on certain conditions. And I remember that at that point of time, because, when a certain area comes under the purview of private forest, certain things are allowed, certain things are not allowed. And so I thought, for the benefit of the owners of the private forest, we should have a private forest management plan wherein some concessions would be given to the owners, like plantation of fruit-bearing trees, so that they could earn by selling the product. Then concession as far as construction activity is concerned. And I remember we said just 5% of the total area to be allowed to be used for family needs, construction activity for family needs, because the family grows, and then you need to have a bigger house. So just for that purpose. And yes, and also a certain percentage for ecotourism, respecting the environment. And we had this plan well prepared, and we sent it to MOEF. And the reply that we got from MOEF is stick to the Forest Conservation Act 1980. Now, the question I want to ask is, what has changed from then, somewhere 2015 or so, to now? That we don't mind just going right through the protected areas, Bhagwan Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary and Mole National Park. Go right through these protected areas, cut the trees, dig whatever, channels, bypasses, overpasses, and all that. Isn't that going to disturb the flora and fauna of the area? And what happens to the Forest Conservation Act? Isn't that applicable now? I think it is very important for us to respect nature. As I just read a few days back, maybe a week or two ago, a headline that said more than 850,000 animal viruses will be alerted if human beings are not careful. I think the experience that we are presently facing should make us realize that we have to respect the environment. And what I'm saying is, are we the last generation on this earth? Do we have to do everything? Let us keep something for our younger generations. They will grow up. Let them plan. Do we have to take over every open space that is available to put up buildings? And then what is our youth going to do? Let us save the environment. Let us protect it. Let us improve upon it and hand it over to the next generation.
I totally agree with you. Now the government per se states that we need to develop. So that's the defense that they give. Yes. So how would you...
No, I would like to say that, I would like to also be very honest and truthful as far as my government is concerned. And I want to say that the government of the day has done a lot of developmental work in the state by way of schools, markets, hospitals, health centers, the High Court building, the roads, everything. Everything is being taken care of. Everything has improved. Something that was not happening for years has happened within this short span of time. But unfortunately, the 3 linear projects, as far as I'm concerned, are destroyed. And most important of all, I don't understand the need for these 3 linear projects in the state of Goa. Because frankly, I still cannot see any benefits that will be accrued to the state and the people of the state. In fact, if you look at doubling of the Southwestern Railway track, if that project becomes a reality, the people of South Goa will suffer. Their lives will be turned into a misery. Because in some cases, I have walked the tracks many times. And I can say this because I have seen it with my own eyes, that in some cases, the tracks are going to be almost on the compound walls of the houses. Now, with the trains coming so close, how are those people supposed to do? What about the noise pollution? What about the coal dust pollution? Of course, we are told that it's not going to be for coal. I have my question marks on that. But yes, life is going to be a misery. What about? We are also aware that a lot of ailments are attributed to noise. Constriction of the blood vessels is one of the results of noise pollution. And constriction of blood vessels can lead to many other health problems. Okay? So we cannot allow people's lives to be turned into a misery. And I still don't know what are the benefits that will be accrued to these people. Are there any benefits that the people who are going to suffer enjoy? None. So why are we doing these projects? Besides, what is the size of our state? Our state is too small. What can be done in the bigger states cannot be done in the state of Goa, because just to give you a small example, like for example, if you look at the state towards the north, Maharashtra, 82 times bigger than Goa. You look at the state towards the south of Goa, Karnataka, 51.8 times bigger than Goa. Now tell me, what is possible within these big states, can it be contained in dot-sized Goa? You know the district of Karwar? Karwar is 10 times bigger than Goa. Just a district of the state of Karnataka is 10 times bigger than Goa. So look at the smallness of our state. And if we believe in planning, then planning will never allow these projects which will destroy our environment, destroy our heritage. South Goa is known for its heritage houses. So we cannot allow destruction in the name of development. Until date, I would like to know specifically what are the benefits that will be accrued to the state and to the people.
So, ma'am, considering that about the size of Goa, Goa is a mix of city and rural areas. We've been talking about smart villages. What would be the success indicators of smart villages and smart cities that you being a local from Goa would look up to having?
Yes.
And how are the corporates also supporting this?
Yes. First of all, let me tell you that yes, I think Goa is a tiny state, but it has been blessed by the Creator with natural beauty. And frankly, I don't think that men can be better architects than the Creator. Goa is on the international map as far as tourism is concerned. And you have people from all over the world. I think it's almost everybody's dream that one day they will visit Goa. And why? Because of its environment. Okay? In fact, when late Mathani Saudanya was there, he had prepared what was the policy called heritage tourism, the policy for heritage tourism, where he believed that, certain houses that are big enough, and can spare 1 or 2 rooms, they could provide, the government could provide assistance to the owners so that they could do up these rooms and whatever other infrastructure that goes into, so that tourists could enjoy an experience of the heritage and the environment of Goa. But, as I said, God had other plans. But what I'm trying to say is Goa is beautiful. And if Goa is loved by the world, it's because of this natural beauty that the Creator has blessed it with. It is not destroyed. Let's enhance it. Okay? And of course, what has to be done should be done as far as construction is concerned, as far as hotels are concerned. There should be planning. Planning will tell us exactly what is the need, for what and how much. That is what planning is all about. So if we plan and at the same time take care of this natural beauty that our state is blessed with, Goa can be the most sought after tourist destination. But if we were to have projects like doubling of the track, where we're going to destroy the environment, we're going to pollute the environment, very soon the tourists will think twice before they visit.
Absolutely, ma'am. Now we have in the US Mr. Joe Biden as the president, and the stance will be soon changing from not signing the climate treaty to signing the climate treaty by the US also. So where does India stand and how far are we to achieve our goals? What are the steps that Indians, not only the corporates, but also we as citizens need to take up to ensure that we reach this?
I think, that I think in our pursuit to do well, we have forgotten our boundaries. We have forgotten that our survival on this planet depends upon the trees. If the trees don't give us oxygen, we won't be able to breathe. If the trees don't take in the carbon dioxide that we breathe out, and which is produced as a result of the process of combustion, there will be global warming increasing, because carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. And who does this job of giving us, this vital function of giving us oxygen to breathe and making sure that the percentage of the greenhouse gases is maintained at the level it should be to protect our environment, are the trees. We have to respect the trees. But somehow I don't think we even think twice when we go and chop the trees. And it hurts. It hurts me. I remember one little incident when Madani was there. And we were traveling by car because that was our route from Panjim to south. That was our regular route. And, there were moments when we would be looking out at the environment and nobody would disturb me. And even I would stop talking because I can talk a lot. So I would stop talking to allow him to enjoy those moments. And I remember one day suddenly he exclaimed and he said, "Oh God," he said, "look at them." So I said, "What happened?" He said, "Look, they've gone and cut them." He was aware of every tree along the route that he kept, because his heart was in it. He loved the environment, he respected the environment, because he understood the role the environment played in our lives. And I wish and I hope that very soon that this understanding will be of all those at the helm of affairs, so that we take care of
In the current times, we have Kamala Harris, who is the Vice President of the United States. And we in India are still struggling to pass the bill in Lok Sabha. So how do you see that the women's bill will be passed by ordinance or by voting by our Honorable Prime Minister?
Well, I think our Honorable Prime Minister is a very intelligent person, and he understands the role of a woman in the society. And I'm sure that by now he has the personal experience of knowing and seeing that women, when entrusted with responsibility, have risen to their, to their best. And I think this factor will lead the Honorable Prime Minister to ensure that the bill is passed and women are given equal responsibility and treated as equals.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, how do you see that youth and even women leaders could be a part of the political arena, because it's very difficult for us to even understand what is the road and navigation. Like many of people are blessed with either family backing or with other modes. But how would a normal youth coming out of college, if he or she wants to contribute to the society via politics, take them?
I think first and foremost, when the youth, whether it is the youth is at the school level or university level, I think it is for the teachers, to create an awareness about their responsibilities, so that the youth is helped to grow up responsibly. And I think our youth is quite responsible, because presently, in the struggle against the 3 linear projects, I see a lot of youth coming forward, and genuinely concerned about the environment, concerned about the state. I think our youth is definitely going from a level to a higher level of understanding their responsibility, and also understanding the fact that this very planet will be their responsibility in the near future once they assume responsibility. And therefore, I think, yes, I have a youth sitting right in front of me who's asking me such sensible and responsible questions to which I am trying my best to answer. I have full faith in our youth. And I think that whenever we, the present generation, adult generation, plan something, we have to plan by keeping the youth in mind. We also have to leave opportunities to the future generations. Are we the last generation on this earth to live on this planet? Definitely not. So there is no need to go on doing things. See, as long as the basics are made available to the people of the country and to the people of every state, right, we can take a break and focus on maintenance. I think that's where we fail. We construct, we do beautiful things, and then we just forget about maintenance. I think once we have done and we have provided the basics to a place, we should focus upon maintenance. And let us leave, as far as land is concerned, for our future generations to plan upon and do what they feel is the need of the hour at the time.
Wonderful, ma'am. Because of Corona, there are a lot of new things that have come up, and digitization has come into picture, and you are also handling science and technology.
No, not at the moment.
You used to. So looking at the current situations that we are living in, how do you think apps such as Digital Parliament or even other similar apps could help the politicians to connect with the masses and do a lot of build a bridge between them? What kind of features do you see that apps or online sites like ours and others should have?
Yes. Now, I think this facility is really God-sent, especially in the given circumstances. Right now, I think we probably are being heard by so many, and whatever we speak is being taken note of or whatever. But let me be very honest. I am not so savvy as far as digitization is concerned. Okay, I try my best, but no, I'm not up to the mark. I'm not going to say I know it all. Definitely, because I do interact, but I have to have my PS to come in to help me to set things. Whereas you, for example, you did it all. You did the setting. Now, if I had to do this setting, I wouldn't know what to be honest. I mean, this is probably because when I grew up, this did not exist. You understand? And you, the youth, are lucky that you have this facility. And we, adults, are definitely making use of this facility. This is something that has made the globe smaller. Yeah. It is bringing everybody almost together, you can say. It is something that, say 25 years ago or 50 years ago, we would have never thought that, we had the phone, okay? And the old phone, I remember. And every time the phone rang, the whole world would run to the phone. And now we have our little mobiles that we carry with us. Wherever we go, we can use it. So things are changing. It is happening over a period of time, okay? And yes, definitely, in the given circumstances, now, when people cannot come together in large numbers, I think this is a God-sent facility for us. Where, in spite of the given restrictions, we can still connect.
Absolutely, absolutely. So maybe we can take a few questions from our viewers right now.
Yes.
Dr. Upadhyay?
Alana ji, so nice to hear to you. Excellent views. Yesterday was Diwali, and NGT has banned crackers in Delhi, NCR, and all over most of the places where pollution is there. Still, there was so much crackers yesterday that today the pollution level is at 999. And the population, the people don't respond to those things. How do you involve this section of population which is not responding at all? I have sent the question in the chat box also.
Yeah. Actually, yesterday, last night was the Diwali day, and my little nephew, his parents took him around to see the Narakasuras. But the entire, what should I say, the environment of the moment was very, very subdued. And believe me, in Goa, at least from where I stay, I stay in Mapsa, and I heard no crackers. Otherwise, we would hear crackers throughout the night. There were no crackers. I think people were very, very responsible. I'm sure that, it must have taken a lot of self-control, not to, enjoy Diwali the way we normally do, but people have shown a lot of sense of responsibility, a lot of control, and somehow in the area where I live, that is Pardesh, the firecrackers were hardly heard.
So, ma'am, you belong to a lucky place. But
yeah, but I cannot answer for the whole state. Yeah. I can say for the area where I live, there was a drastic change from last year's Diwali to this year's Diwali. And also in Goa, there is a custom, where neighbors share their sweets and all that. Nothing of that happened. And very rightfully, because, if I send my sweets, the receiver may not be very happy because, you know, there are reasons connected to coronavirus pandemic, and vice versa. So everybody did, I think, behaved in a very, very responsible manner. But like I said, I don't know if this has happened throughout the state. And there might be areas where people have still gone ahead and indulged in the...
How do we control them? Because today the pollution level is 999. So how do we ensure that the other people who aren't following and aren't abiding to the norms, the present norms, how do we educate them or control them?
I think the only way is before a festival, you know, having talks, you know, or impressing upon the minds the need to restrict our joy to within our four walls. Because of the fact that if we go out and further increase the pollution, we are only harming ourselves. I think this has to be impressed upon the minds of the people. And for that, I think the government has to, you know, kind of have a definite plan to educate the people before a festival. Maybe through the newspapers, through the written word, maybe by having vehicles moving where somebody, you know, speaks to the public in general, explaining why we have to curtail our enthusiasm this year. And hopefully things will be normal.
And maybe we can have these kind of Zoom meetings with chief ministers of the state and other MLAs and MPs coming together and passing on a message to their
TV programs, TV programs, audio programs on the radio.
Yeah.
I think we need to impress upon the mind that this has to be done for our own safety. You know, when people realize that what we are doing is for our own good, automatically things fall in place.
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely. I'll just check if there are any other questions. So, we also run an institution in CSR and sustainability. What kind of courses do you see that we should be rolling out to educate the future minds?
Yes, I think first and foremost, we should encourage people. We should encourage people, you know, to do afforestation, planting of trees, make them realize the importance of a tree, you know, then make sure that people go back to their fields. Because it's very sad, even in our state of Goa, we see a lot of fields that are lying fallow. Okay? Because people are, and I don't know, I hope I'm wrong, but I get this feeling that the youth of today, now most of the youth, our youth is educated. And once you attain a certain level of education, maybe, you know, the trend is to think that it is below my dignity now to work in the field. I think that mindset has to change. And that has to be done at the school level, at the university level, where the youth begins to realize that the more educated I am, the more I have to understand how important it is for me to take care of my environment, to use the assets that the environment has provided us for our own benefit. It has to be through school, through colleges, through universities.
Wonderful, ma'am. It has been a great pleasure talking to you. Any final message or words to the youth and to the people?
Yes, I would love to give a very short but a very definite message to the youth. The future is yours, okay? But because the future is yours, it doesn't mean that you wait for the future. The present is also yours. And to ensure that your future is taken care of. Once you have attained a certain age and a certain level of reasoning, participate, speak up, tell the authorities what you think about various issues. Make your thoughts known, because the future is yours and it is for you to take a stand now to ensure that the future and the environment, the future of the environment, that the environment is handed over to you in a manner that it was handed over to us. Because the environment that was handed over to us was beautiful, okay? Because our ancestors took great care of the environment. In fact, I don't think they ever thought that, advancement and modernization and development means cutting down trees or cutting down hills. No, they believed in making the best of their lives in the environment that existed, and they respected it. I think if we learn to respect our environment, then everything will fall in place. And I know the youth of today, after seeing so many things that are going wrong all over the world, in fact, look at, there are so many issues, worldwide issues, which are the consequences of adult generations not being careful. So I request the youth of today, I love the youth, by the way, I love the youth, and I want the youth of my country, the youth of my state, and the world at large to have the best, just the way we did. And we had a beautiful youth because our ancestors, our adults were very responsible. And therefore, I also request our adult generation, the present generation, to think of the youth, to think of the future, and plan so that our planning, our development benefits the future generations.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's been an honor to have you with us today. And I'm sure all the people who are over here and who are viewing this program would have enjoyed the discussion early in the morning on the climate change and the environment management, which is a very pertinent topic, and we all need to participate in it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for giving me this opportunity. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's an honor. Thank you, Dr. Upadhyay. I appreciate your question. Thank you.
Thank you,
for joining.